Most people meet Stoicism at the wrong moment. They find it after a rejection, a loss, a public failure, a diagnosis, a betrayal, or one more night spent staring at a future they cannot control. They are not looking for ancient philosophy now. They are looking for a way to stop being ruled by what happens to them. That search is older than Rome, older than empires, older than most of the institutions we trust to make life predictable. Stoicism began in a port city more than 2,000 years ago, with a man who had lost nearly everything in a shipwreck. It survived because it addressed a problem that has never disappeared. How do you live with steadiness when life refuses to become steady? By the end of this story, Stoicism will not be a collection of stern quotes or a personality type built around silence. You will see it as a living discipline, shaped by merchants, teachers, statesmen, exiles, and emperors. More importantly, you will understand what it asks of you when the message does not come, the plan collapses, the criticism lands, or the world becomes louder than your own judgment. The human instinct is to seek security by controlling more. We organize calendars, save money, build reputations, seek approval, make contingency plans, and try to arrange life so that pain arrives only in manageable portions. There is wisdom in preparation, but there is also a hidden danger. When your peace depends on outcomes you do not command, peace becomes fragile. A promotion can be delayed. A relationship can change. A friend can misunderstand you. The health of someone you love can deteriorate despite every effort. You can do good work and still be ignored. You can act honestly and still be judged unfairly. No amount of intelligence removes this fact. Much of life takes place beyond the edge of your control. Many people respond by becoming anxious managers of the uncontrollable. They replay conversations. They predict disasters. They argue with the past. They try to force certainty from people who cannot give it. Others take the opposite path. They numb themselves with distraction, cynicism, consumption, or a cool detachment that looks like strength but is often exhaustion. Stoicism offered another possibility. It did not promise that the world would become fair. It did not claim that suffering was an illusion. It asked a more demanding question. If external events are unstable, where can a human being place the center of a good life? The Stoic answer was character. Not image, not comfort, not success as other people measure it. Character in the deepest sense. Your capacity to see clearly, choose honorably, act courageously, treat others justly, and govern your desires rather than become their servant. That answer began with Zeno of Citium. Zeno was born on Cyprus, likely in the early 3rd century before Christ. Ancient accounts tell us that he was a merchant whose goods were lost in a shipwreck. Whether every detail of that story is exact matters less than the image that survived. A man arriving in Athens stripped of his previous security, then finding a new direction through philosophy. According to the ancient tradition, Zeno entered a bookseller's shop and encountered writings about Socrates. He asked where he could find such a man. The bookseller pointed toward Crates, a Cynic philosopher, passing nearby. Zeno became his student, though he did not simply inherit the Cynic way of life. The Cynics had challenged social vanity with astonishing boldness. They exposed hypocrisy, mocked status, and insisted that virtue mattered more than possessions. But their rejection of convention could be deliberately extreme. Zeno took seriously their conviction that a good life could not rest on wealth or applause, yet he sought a philosophy more suited to ordinary human bonds, civic responsibility, and rational cooperation. He began teaching in a painted colonnade in Athens called the Stoic. From that porch came the name Stoicism. It was not born in a palace, a military camp, or a monastery. It began in a public space, amid the movement of a city. That detail matters. Stoicism was never designed as an escape from the world. It was a method for entering the world without losing yourself inside its confusion. Zeno and the early Stoics built a complete view of reality. They studied logic, the natural world, ethics, language, emotion, duty, and the place of human beings within a larger order. Modern readers sometimes reduce Stoicism to a few practical ideas about resilience. Those ideas are valuable, but they rest on a larger foundation. The Stoics believed the universe was ordered by reason, which they called logos. They did not picture human beings as isolated creatures thrown into a meaningless accident. They saw each person as a participant in a larger whole, capable of reason and therefore capable of recognizing duties to others. This did not mean every event was pleasant, or that every tragedy felt good from a human perspective. A child's illness is not made easy by calling it part of nature. A war is not made just because it occurs. Stoicism did not ask people to smile at suffering. It asked them to distinguish between the pain of an event and the additional torment created by refusing to accept that the event has occurred. That distinction is difficult because acceptance is often confused with approval. To accept reality means to stop wasting strength on denying its existence. If someone has betrayed you, acceptance does not mean their betrayal was acceptable. It means you begin from the truth that they have done it. From there, you can decide what justice, boundaries, grief, or action require. The early Stoics called the highest good virtue. They identified 4 central forms of it: wisdom, justice, courage, and moderation. Wisdom meant seeing things accurately and choosing well. Justice meant recognizing that other people are not merely tools for your use. Courage meant facing pain, danger, and difficulty without abandoning what is right. Moderation meant refusing to be dragged by appetite, vanity, anger, or excess. Everything else in Stoic terms belonged to a different category. Health, money, reputation, comfort, even life itself could be valuable, worth choosing when possible, but they were not the final measure of whether a person had lived well. The Stoics called them preferred or dispreferred indifference. The language can sound cold to modern ears, as though health or family did not matter. That was not the point. A Stoic would prefer health to illness, safety to danger, friendship to isolation, and enough resources to poverty. But these things can be taken away. If your goodness depends entirely on what can be taken away, then your goodness is hostage to fortune. Virtue, by contrast, remains available in every condition. Even in illness, you can be honest. Even in poverty, you can be just. Even in humiliation, you can refuse cruelty. This was a radical claim. It moved the center of human dignity inward, not inward as a retreat into private feeling, but inward as the place where judgment and choice are formed. A person might be enslaved, exiled, poor, sick, or politically powerless, yet still possess the capacity to respond with integrity. No tyrant could fully steal that capacity unless the person surrendered it. After Zeno, Stoicism was developed by thinkers such as Cleanthes and Chrysippus. Cleanthes, Zeno's successor, was said to have worked as a water carrier while studying philosophy. He became known for discipline and devotion, and his hymn to Zeus expresses the Stoic vision of a rational cosmos in which human beings are called to follow the larger order rather than fight blindly against it. Chrysippus, who led the school after Cleanthes, gave Stoicism much of its intellectual structure. Ancient sources say he wrote hundreds of books. Much of his work is lost, but his influence was enormous. Later generations could disagree with Stoic conclusions, while still having to wrestle with Stoic logic. For Chrysippus and the Stoics, emotions were not simply wild forces that invaded the mind. They were connected to judgments. Fear often involved the judgment that something bad was approaching. Anger involved the judgment that someone had committed a wrong deserving retaliation. Despair could involve the judgment that life had become unbearable or irreparably ruined. This did not mean emotions were fake. It meant they were intelligible. They had beliefs inside them, and beliefs can be examined. Consider what happens when someone criticizes you in front of others. The initial sting may arrive quickly. Your body tightens. Your mind heats up. But the deepest suffering often comes seconds later when the judgment begins. They have humiliated me. Everyone now thinks less of me. I must strike back. I cannot bear this. Stoicism invites a pause between the event and the verdict. What exactly happened? Was the criticism false, partly true, careless, malicious, useful, or simply unpleasant? Does another person's opinion determine your worth? What response will make you respect yourself tomorrow morning? The Stoic goal was not to become emotionless. The ideal was not a stone face or a deadened heart. The Stoics criticized destructive passions because these passions distorted judgment and carried people away from their values. But they also recognized healthy states of mind, joy in acting well, caution guided by reason, and goodwill toward other people. A Stoic could grieve. Marcus Aurelius mourned losses. Seneca wrote about bereavement. Epictetus spoke to people who feared illness, death, separation, and hardship. The difference was not whether a Stoic felt pain. The difference was whether pain was allowed to become a command. From Athens, Stoicism traveled across the Mediterranean and changed as it moved. By the time it reached Rome, it had become especially influential among people facing the pressures of public life, political uncertainty, social hierarchy, and personal loss. Roman Stoicism is what most modern readers encounter first through Seneca, Epictetus, and Marcus Aurelius. Seneca was born in Cordoba, in Roman Spain, and lived during one of the most dangerous periods of the Roman Empire. He was a writer, statesman, tutor to the Emperor Nero, and eventually a target of Nero's suspicion. His life was not simple proof of Stoic consistency. He was wealthy, politically entangled, and subject to the compromises of power. That complexity is precisely why he remains interesting. Seneca did not write from the safety of perfect virtue. He wrote as someone who knew how easily fear, ambition, luxury, anger, and attachment could take command. His letters often sound like a man reminding himself of the lesson as much as teaching it to anyone else. In one of his letters, Seneca writes, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality. The line has endured because it names a familiar wound. Many of the things we fear never happen, yet the body responds as if they already have. We rehearse the rejection before it arrives. We live through the financial disaster before the numbers are known. We build an entire future from one ambiguous message." Seneca did not argue that danger was never real. Rome was full of real danger: exile, illness, political violence, and sudden reversals of fortune were facts of life. His point was that the mind adds unnecessary suffering when it turns uncertainty into certainty and possibility into doom. He advised a kind of measured preparation for adversity. Modern readers sometimes call this negative visualization, though the ancient practice was more serious than simply imagining bad things to feel grateful. Seneca encouraged people to consider loss, hardship, and mortality so that they would not be shocked into helplessness when life changed. This is not a ritual of catastrophe. It is a way of remembering that what you possess is not guaranteed. The person beside you, the health you assume, the work you complain about, the home you return to, the ordinary day you barely notice, all of it is fragile. When you remember that fragility without panic, gratitude becomes sharper and your priorities become clearer. Seneca also understood the danger of postponing life. In On the Shortness of Life, he argues that life is not necessarily short, but that we often waste much of it through distraction, ambition, busyness, and a constant deferral of what matters. A person can be active from morning until night and still fail to live. That is a distinctly modern problem. You can fill every hour and remain absent from your own existence. You answer messages, monitor notifications, absorb opinions, compare achievements, and move from obligation to obligation. Then, in a quiet moment, you realize that weeks have passed without reflection. Stoicism does not demand that you abandon work or ambition. It asks whether your work serves a life worth living, or whether you have become a servant of motion itself. The test is not how much you have done. It is whether you have done what duty, reason, and conscience asked of you. Seneca's relationship with wealth is particularly useful today. He did not say money was inherently evil. He said it was dangerous when it owned the person who claimed to own it. Wealth can offer options, security, education, generosity, and relief from certain hardships. But when comfort becomes a necessity for your sense of self, you become vulnerable to every disruption. A simple Stoic practice is to occasionally choose a small inconvenience voluntarily. Eat a plain meal. Walk rather than drive when you can. Spend an evening without constant entertainment. Delay an impulse purchase, not because hardship is glamorous, but because you are training yourself to remember that comfort is pleasant, not sacred. The person who can endure a modest inconvenience is less likely to panic when a larger hardship arrives. Discipline becomes a form of freedom. You discover that many things you call needs are habits wearing a more dramatic name. If Seneca shows Stoicism under the pressure of wealth and politics, Epictetus shows it under the pressure of limitation. He was born into slavery, probably in the middle of the 1st century after Christ. He later gained his freedom and became a teacher whose ideas were recorded by his student Arrian. Epictetus left no writings in his own hand that we know of, but his discourses and Enchiridion became among the most influential Stoic texts ever preserved. Epictetus begins with a division that remains the most practical doorway into Stoicism. Some things are up to us and some are not. Our judgments, intentions, desires, aversions, and chosen actions are within the sphere of our agency. Our bodies, possessions, reputation, the behavior of other people, and many outcomes are not fully ours to command. This is often called the dichotomy of control, though it is more precise to speak of what depends on us and what does not. You can influence many external things, but influence is not control. You can prepare for an interview, develop skill, show up on time, speak honestly, and follow up professionally. You cannot control whether another person chooses you. You can love someone faithfully. You cannot control whether they remain faithful in return. Confusion begins when we demand control where only influence exists. We become desperate to manage another person's feelings. We make our self-respect depend on public approval. We measure our worth by results shaped by timing, luck, market conditions, the preferences of strangers, and forces no individual can direct. Epictetus does not tell you to stop caring about outcomes. He tells you to care about them in the right way. Prepare carefully. Act with intelligence. Pursue what is reasonable. Then place your deepest concern on the quality of your own choice. If you are waiting to hear whether you got the job, this distinction can change the experience. You may still want the job. You may still feel nervous. But rather than giving the waiting period all authority over your mood, you return to what remains available. Send the needed documents, continue looking, care for your health, honor existing commitments, and refuse to turn one decision made by strangers into a verdict on your entire future. Epictetus was especially alert to the trap of approval. He knew that people will often choose praise over principle because praise feels immediate, while integrity can feel lonely. But a reputation is unstable. It is built from the judgments of people who may know little about you, and who may change their minds tomorrow. When you live for approval, you hand your inner life to an audience. You become anxious not only about what you do, but about how every act will be interpreted. Stoicism asks you to recover a more reliable judge, the part of you capable of asking whether you acted fairly, courageously, and truthfully. That does not mean dismissing all criticism. Sometimes, criticism is a gift wrapped in poor delivery. If someone points to a weakness in your work, your behavior, or your character, examine it. If it is true, use it. If it is false, it does not become true because it was said loudly. If it is partly true, keep the useful part and release the rest. This is much harder than it sounds. A single harsh comment can eclipse 100 fair ones. But Epictetus trains the mind to see an insult as an external impression arriving at the gate. You do not have to admit it immediately. You can ask whether it deserves belief. He also spoke often about difficult people. They are not a modern invention. There were selfish, arrogant, dishonest, careless, and irritating people in the Roman world, just as there are now. The Stoic response was not naive tolerance. You may need boundaries. You may need to speak clearly, withdraw trust, report wrongdoing, leave a harmful environment, or protect someone vulnerable. But the Stoic asks you to do this without letting another person's vice recruit you into your own. Their dishonesty does not require your dishonesty. Their cruelty does not require your cruelty. Their anger does not require you to become an instrument of anger. This is where Stoicism is often misunderstood as passive. It is not passive to face reality clearly. It is not passive to act with justice. Marcus Aurelius, who ruled the Roman Empire, repeatedly reminded himself to work for the common good. Stoic ethics was never only about private calm. It was about duty to other human beings. Marcus Aurelius is perhaps the most famous Stoic because of the remarkable contrast in his life. He was emperor of Rome from the year 161 to 180. He commanded armies, dealt with war, plague, political pressure, family tragedy, and the enormous burden of governing an empire. Yet the book for which he is remembered, Meditations, was not written as a public manual. It was a private record of moral reminders. That makes Meditations unusually intimate. Marcus is not presenting himself as a finished sage. He is often correcting himself. He tells himself to rise and do the work of a human being. He warns himself against resentment, vanity, distraction, and complaint. He returns again and again to mortality, duty, and the need to meet other people with patience. One of his most famous lines is, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." The wording is widely translated, but the principle is unmistakably his. Your power is not unlimited. You cannot command disease, weather, aging, war, or another person's character, but you can work on the judgments through which you meet these realities. Marcus did not use this insight to withdraw from responsibility. He used it to become more responsible. When something difficult happened, the question was not merely, "Why has this happened to me?" It was, "What does this situation now ask of me?" That question changes the direction of your attention. A betrayal may ask for clarity and boundaries. A failure may ask for humility and renewed effort. A frightening diagnosis may ask for courage, honest conversation, and a deeper appreciation of time. A conflict at work may ask for calm preparation rather than impulsive retaliation. The event does not become good, but your response can become good. Marcus also wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." This is one of the most powerful Stoic ideas, though it is often simplified into a slogan about turning every obstacle into an opportunity. Marcus meant something more demanding. An obstacle may not create an advantage in the ordinary sense. Grief is not a productivity hack. Illness is not automatically a gift. Injustice is not secretly desirable. But every obstacle creates a field for some virtue. A delay can become an occasion for patience. A difficult task can become an occasion for persistence. An insult can become an occasion for self-command. A loss can become an occasion to love more consciously what remains. The obstacle changes the form of your work. It does not erase the possibility of meaningful work. Marcus was also deeply aware of death. This may sound morbid, but for the Stoics, mortality was a clarifying fact. You will not have unlimited chances to repair a relationship. Speak honestly, begin the work you avoid, or become the person you claim you want to be. Remembering death is not meant to poison life. It is meant to remove the illusion that life can always be postponed. When you treat time as infinite, you spend it carelessly. You stay in needless resentment because you assume there will be plenty of years to resolve it. You delay courage because tomorrow appears guaranteed. You tolerate a life beneath your values because changing feels uncomfortable. Stoic reflection on mortality says, this day has weight, not because you must make it spectacular, but because it is real and finite. You do not need to conquer the world before evening. You need to meet the part of life in front of you with attention and decency. Alongside these famous names, Musonius Rufus deserves to be remembered. He was Epictetus' teacher and one of the clearest advocates of philosophy as a practical way of living. Musonius taught that philosophy should train both thought and conduct. It was not enough to discuss courage, one had to practice it. It was not enough to praise moderation, one had to eat, spend, speak, and live with moderation. He also argued that women, no less than men, were capable of philosophy because both possessed reason and the capacity for virtue. In a world structured by rigid inequalities, this was a significant moral claim. Stoicism's vision of a shared human rationality carried seeds of universalism. Every person, whatever their rank or origin, belonged to the same human community. The Stoic thinker Hierocles developed this sense of moral connection through the image of circles. At the center is the self. Around it are family, friends, neighbors, fellow citizens, and finally humanity as a whole. The ethical task is to draw these circles inward, to treat those further away with greater recognition and care. This is another correction to the caricature of Stoicism as cold individualism. Stoic self-mastery was meant to make you more reliable in relation to others. If you are less ruled by ego, fear, envy, and rage, you become better able to keep promises, offer help, judge fairly, and remain present when someone else is suffering. The ancient Stoic school eventually declined as an organized institution. Political changes, shifts in education, and the rise of Christianity transformed the intellectual landscape of the Roman world. But Stoic ideas did not vanish. They were preserved, adapted, criticized, and rediscovered. Centuries later, writers and thinkers returned to Seneca, Epictetus, and Marcus Aurelius. During the Renaissance and early modern period, scholars sought ways to reconcile Stoic discipline with religious belief. The Dutch thinker Justus Lipsius helped inspire what became known as Neo-Stoicism, a renewed interest in Stoic constancy amid religious conflict and political upheaval. Stoic themes also traveled through literature, moral philosophy, political thought, and psychology. They appeared wherever people wrestled with endurance, duty, fate, self-command, and the relationship between inner freedom and external pressure. The philosophy changed as it moved. Not every later use of the word Stoic represented the ancient school accurately. Still, the central challenge remained recognizable. Then, in the 20th century, Stoicism found an unexpected relative in psychotherapy. Albert Ellis, who developed rational emotive behavior therapy, openly acknowledged the influence of Epictetus. Cognitive behavioral therapy likewise works with the insight that emotions are shaped not only by events, but by the interpretations we place upon them. This does not mean modern therapy is simply Stoicism in clinical language. Therapy has its own methods, evidence, and responsibilities. Serious mental health conditions deserve proper care, and no ancient philosophy should be used to shame someone for struggling. But there is a genuine family resemblance. When a therapist helps someone notice a catastrophic thought, test its accuracy, and develop a more balanced response, the process echoes the Stoic examination of impressions. When you learn to separate what happened from the story your mind immediately creates about what happened, you are practicing something ancient and still useful. Today, Stoicism is everywhere. It appears in books, podcasts, military training, sports, business culture, recovery communities, online discussions, and social media. Its popularity reflects a real hunger. People are tired of being emotionally pulled apart by forces they cannot control. They want strength without becoming cruel, calm without becoming passive, and purpose without needing constant validation. But popularity brings distortion. Sometimes, Stoicism is presented as a way to become invulnerable. It is not. Sometimes it becomes a tool for enduring exploitation, as though every injustice should be accepted quietly. It should not. Sometimes it is reduced to masculine hardness, even though Stoic virtue has nothing to do with emotional numbness or performative toughness. A Stoic can say, "This hurts," A Stoic can ask for help. A Stoic can leave an abusive relationship. A Stoic can oppose corruption, defend someone vulnerable, mourn deeply, and still refuse to be consumed by hatred. Strength is not the absence of feeling. It is the capacity to feel without abandoning judgment. The modern world gives us endless opportunities to practice this distinction. Consider the small device in your hand. It can bring useful information, connection, art, work, and learning. It can also turn your attention into a marketplace. Every notification offers an impression. This is urgent, this is important, this person's life is better than yours. This opinion requires your outrage. This purchase will make you complete. The Stoic response is not necessarily to throw the device away. It is to reclaim the authority to decide what deserves your attention. Before opening another feed, ask what you are seeking. Information? Relief? Belonging? Escape? Approval? The answer may reveal that you are trying to solve an inner problem with an outer stimulus. Comparison is especially corrosive because it takes something that might inspire you and turns it into a verdict against yourself. You see another person's career, appearance, relationship, discipline, or success, and your mind begins constructing a case against your own life. But you never see the whole person. You see a selected surface, then compare it to your private uncertainty. Stoicism redirects attention toward your own role. You cannot control whether someone else is admired. You can control whether envy makes you smaller. You can learn from excellence without resenting it. You can ask, what can I do today, within my actual circumstances, that reflects courage, justice, wisdom, or self-command? This is not settling for less. It is refusing to waste your life in a competition with incomplete information. The same principle applies when motivation disappears. Modern culture often treats motivation as the engine of discipline. But motivation is a weather pattern. Some days it arrives. Some days it does not. If you only act when you feel inspired, your commitments will be ruled by conditions outside your values. The Stoic does not wait for perfect feeling before doing what must be done. You may not feel like making the difficult call, beginning the assignment, exercising, apologizing, or facing the financial reality you have avoided. But if the action is yours to take, and it is aligned with your duty, then mood does not need to be granted total authority. This does not require self-punishment. Stoicism is not a demand to work without rest or deny genuine limits. Wisdom includes knowing when the body needs sleep, when grief needs space, when a relationship needs repair, and when a goal no longer deserves pursuit. Discipline without wisdom becomes another form of blindness. The key is to ask better questions. Not, do I feel like this? But, what is the next honorable action available to me? Not, can I guarantee the outcome? But, can I make a good effort? Not, how do I stop feeling afraid? But, what does courage look like while fear is present? This is how Stoicism becomes practical, without becoming shallow. It does not provide a formula for winning every situation. It helps you become someone who is less likely to lose themselves when situations cannot be won. There is a useful daily rhythm found across Stoic practice. In the morning, anticipate the kinds of challenges you may face. Not with dread, but with readiness. You may encounter impatience, confusion, temptation, criticism, delay, or disappointment. Remind yourself in advance that these are part of being human. Then, during the day, pause when an impression becomes intense. Before sending the angry message, before making the purchase you will regret, before assuming someone's silence means rejection, take a breath and ask what is actually under your control. Often the first impulse is not your deepest judgment. It is simply the first wave. At night, review the day honestly. Seneca describes a practice of examining one's actions. Where did I act well? Where did I fail? What can I correct? The point is not to put yourself on trial with cruelty. It is to become teachable. A person who never reflects repeats the same patterns while calling them personality. Over time, These small pauses create something precious, space between life and reaction. You begin to notice that an emotion can arise without becoming an order. A thought can appear without becoming a fact. An external event can hurt without defining your entire identity. This is the living inheritance of Zeno's porch. A merchant loses his cargo and begins asking where security truly lies. A former slave teaches that inner freedom cannot be given by others and therefore cannot simply be taken by them. A wealthy statesman warns that imagined suffering can consume a life. An emperor, surrounded by power and mortality, writes private reminders to stay just, humble, and useful. Their circumstances were different from yours. Their world was harsher in many ways, and their assumptions do not all belong unchanged in the present. Yet, their central struggle remains familiar. They were trying to keep the mind from becoming a prisoner of fear, desire, pride, and circumstance. Your life may not resemble ancient Athens or imperial Rome. Your battles may take place in a hospital waiting room, a difficult marriage, a crowded office, an empty apartment, a classroom, a courtroom, a family group chat, or the silence after a plan fails. But the question is still close. When the external world becomes unstable, what in you can remain trustworthy? Stoicism answers that your response can remain trustworthy. Not always easy, not always flawless. You will still become frustrated. You will still grieve. You will still make poor judgments and need to repair them. The Stoic path is not a promise of permanent calm. It is a practice of returning. Return to the facts. Return to your values. Return to the part of the situation that belongs to your choice. Return to the person you want to be when no outcome is guaranteed. This is why Stoicism has endured. It does not flatter the fantasy that you can control life. It offers something more durable, the possibility that life can strike hard without making you false to yourself. Today, choose one event that has been occupying your mind. Perhaps it is an uncertainty, a criticism, a conflict, or a loss. Write down 2 columns. In one, place what does not depend on you. In the other, place the next action that does. Then give your energy to that action, and let the rest be what it is. The old Stoic porch is still open, wherever you reclaim your judgment from chaos.